In the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes, called in Hebrew Kohelet, we find these well-known verses. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. This is a time for both silence and for speech. Silence because so many of us are simply at a loss for words. Speech because we understand the power of words to harm and to heal. We've gathered on the green, the very heart of this community, to share our horror, our grief, and our resolve. The violence that erupted in the Tree of Life congregation in Pittsburgh on Saturday morning had a tragic context, that of unspeakable violence directed at faith communities. It brought to mind the murder of 9 African-American worshipers at Charleston's Mother Emanuel Church in 2015. The murder of 26 worshipers in a Baptist church in Sutherland Springs, Texas in 2017. The killing of 6 Sikh worshipers at a temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin in 2014. The murder of 2 African Americans in a Louisville, Kentucky supermarket when that shooter failed to gain access to a black church. And of course, the bombing of Birmingham, Alabama's 16th Street Baptist Church that left 4 young African-American girls dead in the 1960s. Ours is a nation awash in deadly violence, much of it directed against minorities, people of color, Muslims, members of the LGBTQ community, Jews, immigrants, refugees. That violence is fomented and abetted by words that demonize, inflame, and fabricate, and which are heard everywhere on social media and at every level of government. Since Saturday morning's tragedy, I've heard one question and one statement over and over from people with whom I've spoken. The question, what can we do? The statement, there are no words. Part of what we can do is precisely what we are doing at this moment, offering support and consolation, manifesting our resolve not to retreat into indifference or despair. The late and revered Fred Rogers, better known to many as Mr. Rogers, whose Squirrel Hill home was just blocks from that synagogue in Pittsburgh, offered this helpful advice. He said, when I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. How true that is. You need only look to your right or left or across this gathering to see a helper. On Saturday morning, I was teaching Torah in my congregation. I had not yet received the terrible news from Pittsburgh when I saw in our congregation's parking lot a Falmouth Police Department cruiser, a visible sign of concern and protection. Chief Dunn, who was here this evening earlier but had to go to a selectmen's meeting, reached out quickly on the weekend with messages of condolence and support. Congressman Bill Keating, who is otherwise occupied with a debate this evening, phoned yesterday to convey his deep concern. The town manager's office and the Department of Public Works graciously offered their assistance to help make this vigil possible on short notice. The helpers are here, and we must count ourselves among them. Sometimes there are no words that feel adequate to the task of conveying what we feel and what we believe. Sometimes those words only emerge from silence. If you've not yet had an opportunity to light a candle, I would invite you to do so now. And I invite all of you to join me in singing a song that has no words. In Hebrew, we call that a nigun, a wordless melody. I'd like to invite to address us Samuel Solarsky, who is the president of Falmouth Jewish Congregation.
Thank you, Elias. Our remarks were prepared separately, but he and I are often on the same page. I start in silence. I start in silence because there are some feelings and some aspects of life that fall well beyond words. The murder of husbands and wives, fathers and mothers, sons and daughters, the murder of friends and relatives, fellow Jews, fellow Americans, the murder of people in sanctuary and at prayer. The feeling falls beyond words. My good friend Rabbi Elias has taught us something taught by Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav. Rabbi Nachman taught that the whole world is a very narrow bridge. The important thing is not to be afraid. Now the lesson here is not that life is without fear. Fearful things do exist. Tragic and evil things do happen. But we must have the courage and the wisdom and the strength to name and reject the fearful and evil things when we see them. We mourn together, we support each other, and we stand against evil. The Jewish community has a wonderful sanctuary here in Falmouth, but our greatest sanctuary is not up on Hatchville Road. Not here. Our greatest sanctuary is right here. Our sanctuary is no physical place. Our sanctuary is with each other. Our greatest sanctuary is within the Jewish community and within the greater community of Falmouth and the broader community of Cape Cod. Actually, for each of us, our greatest sanctuary rests in each other, the person standing by you, the community around you. We mourn what we all know we have lost. That's what we mourn. Thank you for being here.
My professional colleague at Falmouth Jewish Congregation, who bears the wonderful title of Director of Lifelong Learning, is Pamela Rothstein. And she also is, along with me and with Reverend Nell Fields and Olivia Massey-White, a member of the steering committee of No Place for Hate Falmouth. And I invite Pamela forward now.
Thank you, Elias. Hello, friends. Today we stand together as a community, dare I say a sacred community, made sacred by our presence here together. But we also stand here after yet another hate crime in our country. This Saturday it was Jews, last week 2 African Americans in Kentucky, transgender people, Muslim, Sikh, the list sadly goes on. For those of us in the Jewish community, the shooting in Pittsburgh still resonates. We mourn, we are outraged, we console one another, we embrace the outreach from the larger community, from you, and we listen for words of consolation. This is not the first anti-Semitic act in our country, but while fatal attacks have occurred in the past, this one comes within a fresh context, the well-documented rise of anti-Semitic and hate crimes in our country. For the past decade, we charted the killings and hate speech against Jews abroad, in places like France or Hungary. This killing in our own country hits us hard, profoundly. We take time to mourn and to grieve, but we also face explaining to the next generation what is happening. The very next day, on Sunday morning and afternoon, we opened our doors to children and adults, as did the Tree of Life on Saturday. What does this have to do with us? What does it have to do with you? I would suggest everything. How does this event affect our Falmouth and Cape community? I would suggest this response. Dig deep and broadly to understand what it feels like to be a Jew in this country today, to be transgender, to be a person of color, to be anyone targeted by hate speech and by hateful action, including murder. Jewish difference is sometimes, but not always, veiled by our looks and by our integration in society. But behind the similarities lies a difference. And that difference lies in our ever-present duality of awareness, of our history of persecution, and of our hope for a life of freedom, promise, and acceptance in this country. This is what our forebears carried here as immigrants, and it is the legacy that we inherit. You are familiar with words found in Torah, the Jewish Bible. You shall love the neighbor as yourself. This is an audacious love, a love that pushes us out of our comfort zone, but it is also what is so necessary. Jewish prayer, Jewish texts, and ritual remind us daily that we were once strangers in Egypt and thus have a direct responsibility to welcome and love the stranger. But what does such neighborly love look like? Now is a good time to consider this question in our own community, because it is a love and a connection that can be achieved meaningfully and effectively. So I would suggest, send a text or email, or better yet, call or sit down with a Jewish person in this community, a person connected to a Jew. Extend your hand. Embrace that person. Whether through silence, words, or action, express your sadness and outrage. Offer support and caring. Recognize that our lives have been changed by this event, and this murder, and by each and every assault at us directly and on other communities. This is a crucial time to come together to express our caring for the Pittsburgh community and for one another. And I can tell you that I started my day with a text from a friend who said very simple words, 3 words: I support you. Those simple words mean everything. I really encourage you to reach out. When hate crimes are committed anywhere in this country, connect and act locally. Stand allied with every community that faces senseless hatred and violence. Contact an individual or an institution representing that group locally, because what is happening in our country affects us all here, and it will take our engagement locally to imprint this community with justice and respect. As we grieve, let us heal by recommitting to building a vibrant community that embraces diversity rather than demonize it, that sows seeds of justice and understanding rather than seeds of fear and hatred. Peace is not the absence of war, but rather the actualization of love and the ability to deal with our differences. Let us make this community one of peace, one of increasing mutual understanding and support. Our words and deeds matter. Let us truly know and support each other.
Thank you. We call upon Reverend Will Mebane, rector of Saint Barnabas Memorial Church, and I need to adjust this. Watch your step, Will. Thank you.
Dear friends, I have, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I inadvertently turned it off.
Thank you, Elias. Dear friends, I have only been in Falmouth about 7 weeks. Moved here from Buffalo, New York, and before that, Cleveland. And why do I share that with you? Well, first of all, I've been wanting to meet Elias ever since I got here. I was hoping it would be under happier circumstances. I also share that with you because every place I've been, I've always had a rabbi. Rabbi Nosenchuk was my rabbi when I was in Cleveland for 5 years, and Rabbi Friedrich was my rabbi in Buffalo. And so I wanted to meet Jonathan to see if he would now be my rabbi. As a Elias. Thank you.
I go by lots of names.
Elias. My Jewish heritage is important to me as a Christian pastor. I cherish my Jewish roots. But as Elias said, we have all been struggling to find the words to not even try to make sense of, but try to understand perhaps in some way what is going on and what has been going on in our country. And as I struggled the last few days with that, I found myself going back to the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I want to share with you just a few of the quotes that he made about love, in hopes that they will be comforting, perhaps encouraging to you. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. I believe, Dr. King said, that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. And finally, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. There is no place for hate, for hating anyone. Not someone who is black or brown or red, or an indigenous resident, not undocumented individuals seeking refuge from terror and horror and violence and torture and hatred in their own homelands. We, you and I, my beloved, we must place our hope in one another. That is where our hope resides. And this gathering, tonight, at this hour, at this time, gives me hope. I pray that it gives you hope as well. Shalom.
It's time to speak the names of the victims of the terror in Pittsburgh. But it's not enough merely to speak their names. I want to encourage every one of us to go online, find a newspaper, read about the lives that were snuffed out. Like every one of us, complex webs of relationship and accomplishments and failings and achievements. But it's not enough merely to speak their names. We owe it to their memory to find out who they were. Tonight we remember Joyce Feinberg, age 75. Richard Gottfried, age 65. Rose Mallinger, age 97. Jerry Rabinowitz, 66. Cecil Rosenthal, 59. His brother, David Rosenthal, 54. Bernice Simon, 84. Her husband, Sylvan Simon, 86. Daniel Stein, age 71. Melvin Wax, 88. Irving Younger, age 69. In Jewish tradition, there are two prayers that are most closely associated with death and with mourning. The first is known as El Maleh Rachamim, God full of compassion, and it expresses the hope that the soul of the person, the essence of the person who died, will return to its source with God. The other prayer is known as Kaddish, a sanctification of God's name. And I will lead us through both of those prayers now. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hamseh Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kadoshim Utorim Kazohar Harakia Mazhirim, Lenishmat Yakirenu Shahalchu L'Olamam, Baal Harachamim Yasterem Beseter Kanafav L'Olamim, Vitzror Bitzror HaChaim Et Nishmatam, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam, v'nomar Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved ones who have entered eternity, grant clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold them in the embrace of your wings. Secure their souls in eternity. Adonai, they are yours. May they rest in peace. Amen. The words of Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich machutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehe shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lolmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shemei dekudsha berichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'alma v'imru Amen. Yehe shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May God send peace and comfort to every sorrowing heart, and may the memory of our loved ones, of all who perish as a result of hatred, may their memories bless and inspire us always. Friends, I want to conclude with a closing reading, and then I thought perhaps we would sing that nigun one more time and return to the warmth of our homes and our families and friends, but committed and inspired by what we experienced tonight. Let the warmth of these glowing candles be carried inside of us long after tonight. When evil darkens our world, let us be the bearers of light. When fists are clenched in self-righteous rage, let our hands be open for the sake of peace. When injustice slams doors on the ill, the poor, the old, and the stranger, let us pry the doors open. Where shelter is lacking, let us be builders. Where food and clothing are needed, let us be providers. Where knowledge is denied, let us be champions of learning. When dissent is stifled, let our voices speak truth to power. When the earth and its creatures are threatened, let us be their guardians. When bias, greed, and bigotry erode our country's values, let us proclaim liberty throughout the land. In the places where no one acts like a human being, let us bring courage, let us bring compassion, let us bring humanity. Go forth in peace, friends. Good night.